techniques needed for working with ceramics. The first one is wedging our clay. The second one is called score and slip, where you attach two pieces of clay correctly. And then we're going to go over some specific stuff for our coil pots, because that's the project we will be making. The tools that you'll need. First is a cup of water. Wire loop tools, which they're called wire loop tools because they have wire in different shaped loops at the end. Wood tools, some have a curved end or a rounded end, some are shaped in points, or a good old popsicle stick works out pretty well for blending some of our clay. Then we have our fettling knife, which I like to refer to as like a butter knife for clay, used for cutting the clay, and a rolling pin when we're creating the base or any slab. For the first technique, it's called wedging your clay. You should always wedge your clay anytime that you're recycling it, piecing together scrap pieces, or if you're really not sure of the consistency of the clay prior to you sculpting with it. So what happens is air bubbles get trapped inside of it, and if you do not work those out, the air, when it's heated up in the kiln, escapes and it causes breaks or causes your piece to crack. So we want to wedge it. The way to wedge it, you'll need to stand up, place it on the table, one palm on top, the other one on top of the other palm, and you just press down and you just kind of smash it in a little bit. So you have to then pick it up, squish it, you just rotate, you're just working it, just kind of working out any air bubbles or any imperfections, just working into a nice one solid piece. Ideally, you would do this for a couple minutes, but for the video, we're going to shorten it. Okay? So this is just wedging, just rotating, pressing it down. If your clay begins to dry out in any process, you can add water to it, just work it in, and keep it nice and soft. Okay? All right, so that is wedging. Now the next technique, set this aside, is the score and slip. I have two pre-rolled slabs. If I want to connect this slab here, if I just press it on, it will stick for the time being, but when it dries, since this piece and this piece, all the clay shrinks as it dries, would pop off. So score and slip is a process of scratching up, that's scoring. I'm putting little scores, little scratches in the surface. Not really deep, just enough so that you're making a mark, and when you add water over it with your finger, the lines don't completely go away. And then you have to create those teeth and score up the surface on both sides, and then add slip. Slip is watered down clay. So I can take a little piece here, and as I work it with my fingers, this really fine, watery clay that's sticky is slip. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to add that to my seams where I want them to connect. Then I apply pressure, and now they are connected correctly. To ensure that they're going to stay, I'm going to use my wood tools, even the popsicle stick here, and I'm going to blend the areas that I can. So like the sides here, I'm going to pull this clay up, use my fingers to smooth it out, smooth out this area, to ensure that it's connected well. If you're not too concerned about the seam, I can pull the clay up even a little bit like this. Work my finger to smooth it out to make sure that this piece will not come loose. So that is a process of score and slip. Scoring is just scratching it up. Slip is our watered down clay. This way, it will not come off when it dries. I like to think of it when you score, you're creating the teeth. Okay, so when you make the two pieces, they bind together, and then when the clay shrinks as it dries, it binds itself together and it will not come loose. Okay? So that's wedging our clay, and that is score and slip. Two very useful tools needed for when working with clay. The next things I want to cover is some of the techniques for making our coil pots. Coil pots are just pots or any sculpture made of coils. To start this, we need to start with a nice base, a nice round, even, flat slab. So I'll take my chunk of clay here, I'm going to just wedge it very briefly to get it started to roll with the rolling pin. When you start with a rolling pin, you don't want to just start with the chunk here and try to roll it out. You want to kind of press it flat, but always lift it from the table. If you don't lift it from the table, it's going to get stuck. So I'm going to apply medium pressure, roll this out a few times, 3 or 4 times, then I'm going to pick it up. Okay, so then I'm going to flip it over and then I'm going to rotate it. The process of flipping and rotating is going to keep it even and keep it from getting elongated. It'll keep it nice and round or square. Okay. You roll it out till you have the thickness that you want. The thickness we are shooting for is about 1/4 of an inch thick, okay, with about maybe half the thickness of a finger. This is good for my base, so now I'm going to use my fettling knife and I'm going to cut out a circle for the base. Just take this. Set this clay aside, pick this up. I can adjust if I have any edges to clean up. I can use my wire tool, just take them, drag them along, and clean up my edges. Once it's ready for your coils, I'm going to go ahead and score up the base right around the edge where I'm going to lay my first coil. Make those teeth all along here. Set that up here. Now I'm ready to make my first coil. The coils are like making snakes, if you ever made snakes with Play-Doh. Okay, so I'm going to take my slab here, my chunk of clay. I'm going to start to kind of wedge it, but this time I'm working it into a little like log shape or a small coil shape. Once I have it started, okay, I'm ready to roll it out. Now when I roll out the coils, you want to start from the center and work your hands outward. Also, as you're doing that, you're going to be spreading your fingers apart to create a larger area of pressure on top of the coil, because the key to this is keeping even pressure as you roll the coil all the way around. Okay? So I'm going to start in the center, back and forth, rolling my hands out here. Start back in the center, rolling. Now it's going to take practice to get it right. First couple times are going to be a little bit off. Now if it starts to get uneven like this one, I'll take the long way, just tap that down a little bit, start back here, roll it out. Keep going until you get the thickness of your coil that you want. A good thickness to shoot for, again, is about the thickness of a finger. Roll this out. There we go. One nice, one long, good coil. Okay, and this should be as even as possible all the way around. Okay, same thickness the whole way. So now, I'll bring back my slab. I'm going to add some slip to it, some really watered down clay, just on top. Now my first coil, the way I start this one, I lay it right on top. I like to blend this first coil right into the base. That way it makes sure that it's really connected. Just pull the clay down with my tool. See, pull it down, smooth it out with my finger. Now you have two options of how you're going to lay your coils out. The first one, as we lay this on top, when I come to where the coil ended, just go right on top. I just keep building, going all the way around until I need a new coil. Okay? The other option, if you don't like that it's going to be stepping up, is I'm going to cut the coil right here where this one left off. So cut down here. Take that, blend in that seam. Get my wooden tool, pull that clay across, and I'm going to actually blend this into the base as well to really make sure it's nice and secure. Because it's the base, and I really don't want that to come apart. Take my fingers, smooth this out, continue. Okay, so that's The two options is you could keep building, or you can cut them at each time the coil goes around once. And that's really up to you, a look that you will get that you prefer. Okay, so now that I have my first coil on the outside, I'm going to actually blend on the inside as well using my wooden tool. Now I'm going to go to the rounded one. Now I'm going to push the clay down from the coil into the base, evenly around. I'm going to take my finger and smooth out those rough edges. Now for my next coil, once I lay my second one on, this one I'm just going to keep wrapping. So I'm going to start back up here. I'm going to score, because they were not all, it was not one continuous coil, I'm going to score this one again. If you're going to be laying one coil at a time all the way around, it is a good idea to slip and score each one. So this one, I blend in. So I lay this one on top. I keep going. Once I get here, I blend this in, this one back into that one. Now I'm not going to blend the outside coils because I want them to have that coil look to it. I want to keep that. So I'm going to let that be. But on the inside, I am going to. And I'm going to take my popsicle stick. Now I'm going to pull up in a couple places on the coils, blending that seam. You can see how I blended those. This way, they are now connected in a couple points throughout the pot. Take my finger, smooth them out. Now, if you're going to be leaving the pot open, you want to make sure this is nice and neat and blend the whole thing together because everyone's going to be able to see it. If I close off the top, make it, a little flute here at the top that I'm not seeing in, you won't be able to tell. All right. So